Hi, everybody. I love that voice, recording in progress. Welcome to Conversations with Calvin We the Species, yet one more edition, and a very special edition of Conversation with Calvin. As I'm doing things for these 10 days with the Garden State Film Festival, with actors, actresses, um, directors, writers, production people, musicians. It's a great joy and thrill for me to be involved this way. And it also gives me a chance to meet people like Tony Germinario, a fellow Jersey boy. I
Yes, sir.
started watching that movie the other night, Jersey Boys. That's why I said that. And it's like, oh wow, I mean, stuff I never even realized, But anyway, we've been Tony and I have been talking. He's done this film, No Warning, and we're gonna talk about this, and he'll tell you all about it. But as I said, editorially speaking, what Tony's done with No Warning is a powerful statement, and it's a powerful lesson, and it's really needed. This kind of exposure, we'll tell you about it, is really needed in our world today because the issues here ain't going to get better, and people need to know. And I think what you've done and what I've seen from the trailer, it was stark and powerful in that short little trailer version. So, this is my famous monologue, kind of like Johnny Carson's. It's over. It's done. So, Tony, thrilled that you're here. Why don't you do a little background, and then we'll jump into No Warning.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure to speak with you here. Yeah, I'm a filmmaker currently living in the Charleston, South Carolina area, but as you mentioned, I'm Jersey born and bred. I lived 50 years in the area and have been making films here for the past, I guess, 10, 12 years. And really excited to talk to you here today.
Great, great. So, I held No Warning up, so we know the name. What was your role in No Warning?
Sure. Actually, so I was the writer, director, producer. It was a really small, tight team. So I wore a lot of hats, as did everyone that was on the project. But it was exciting to actually do all those different things in a day and a half period, because the entire film was really done in just a day and a half.
Funny, I talked to a student. She did an animated film, and again, I'm learning. I mean, I've been involved with Garden State Film Festival a bunch of years. I know filmmaking, but she was told me the story. This animation thing. She worked on a 3 minute thing for a year,
Oh yeah,
and
animation is crazy.
my, she's telling me that I'm trying to process that. I said, "Oh, you did it once a month." She said, "No, this is like wow." But anyway, so what is No Warning about?
So, No Warning is about, it's basically about a child who's going through a bullying scenario, a pretty severe bullying scenario, and it's about the parents' reaction to that scenario and how they deal with it, what sort of goes through their mind. It's actually it's a fairly personal story, and something that, it just felt like I wanted to get out there, and I don't think it's addressed all that often. Bullying goes on probably a lot more than people know or imagine. And it doesn't just affect the kids, it affects everyone because, as a parent, your entire goal is to protect and love your children. And sometimes when you're in a scenario like this, you just feel helpless and you feel powerless. You feel sometimes useless. And this is sort of showing what emotions a parent goes through as they're trying to, protect and love their children.
So this is really from the perspective of the parents and the pain that they're going through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're trying to protect their daughter and do everything they can. And the child in the film is actually hospitalized, and how do they deal with that? And the child has gone through a horrific experience, and as the parent, you're doing everything you can to protect and love that child. And you know, sometimes there, no matter what you do, you're helpless. And it's how do you deal with it? What sort of emotions do you grapple with, and how do you move forward, and how do you handle it? So that's really what this is trying to emulate.
I think that perspective is hugely important. That whole perspective. Listen, I mentioned you before when I was bullied back in my day, and I still live with vestiges of that. In some ways, I've turned some of that around and made it productive. So, I like to shout from the highest hill, hey, look at me now. You got
Yeah.
to make fun of me and you bullied me. Of course, that word bullying wasn't, in our vocabulary then. But it's the point I'm making to you. It's so powerful because this thing has lived with me for 60 years. And you don't know. And of course, back then, there's no, parents, my parents' first generation, here in America, nobody has a clue about those kind of things. So I think what you're doing is sociologically is really, really needed. The more information and knowledge and viewing of these things. So, I mean, just from where I'm sitting, this is really needed because people, by the way, people live with that on the parent side and on the kid side.
Yeah.
Live with that.
Yep.
I've lived with for 60 years and almost not a day goes by when I don't, in some shape, way, or form. So it's powerful. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I dealt with bullying as a kid as well, and sometimes you think, well, what if I had did things differently then? Would that have changed anything that's happening now? So it totally changes your outlook, some of your interpersonal relationships, because you might have a jaded look at somebody. You might look at things a little differently than you may in a normal situation. So, um, and I think a lot of parents don't know how to handle it or deal with it, and because it's not talked about too much,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And because it's I'm not trying to downplay any of the bullying part of it, because that obviously is the worst part of it. But the parents are trying to help, and sometimes you don't know what to do, and it's trying to figure out each individual, what is the experience that they can use, what can they do to help, what can you do to try and change the situation. And sometimes there's nothing. So
I think
if that's the case, how do you handle it? And in this film, this father and mother, they really don't know what to do yet. So, and the film is really, I'll talk more about how we kind of got here, but this is just one part of what hopefully will become a featured film. So this was sort of a proof of concept
sure.
of showing, hey, here's what we want to start with. This is what the story is going to be about, and we're just going to expand on it.
So overall, there's an inspiration for doing this. What was your inspiration? Well, obviously, you just said some personal stuff in your life, but
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, I mean it was personal experience. So what happened was several months back, Bruno, who's my DP, he had reached out to me. We've worked on several projects together, and he said, "Hey, we just got this brand new camera. We want to play around and test it out. Do you have anything written that we can work with?" And I said, "Well, I don't, but I could probably write a short that we could do." So I sat down and thought about it, and this, I deal with this every day. So I said, you know what, I can probably come up with something around this that would be compelling, that would be a good story, and something that we could probably film pretty quickly and easily on no budget. So I wrote the script in about a day and a half, 2 days, whatever it was, got it to Bruno. Bruno read it over. We worked back and forth on it, and then we just locked in very quick. Spike, who has been my a team member of mine for a long time. We shot it up at his house. So Bruno was the DP. Spike was our focus puller and producer, and we had a really small team. We shot it up at Spike's house in Poughkeepsie in just a day and a half, and we pulled together just a tight team of people we knew or had worked with, and it worked out really good. And it was filming it was surreal because knowing that I had a lot of the emotions that this person is going through on screen, it was so there were shots that were tough to film, but it also helped me explain to Nick Daly, who's the lead actor. I was able to sit down with him and say, here's the feeling. And it's not like I was making it up. It was something I was able to share with him. And he was fantastic. He did an amazing job in the role, and he really kind of leaned into the emotional side of it, right? That one scene when he's in the bedroom, I think he just did a fantastic job, right? And it was really hard to watch it. Even watching it sometimes today, it's because knowing how close that hits to home, it's not the easiest thing. So, but fortunately, like I said, I had a great team, and Nick was just fantastic in that role to really get us there.
Was Nick um, the father in the trailer who answered the door?
He's not the father that answered the door. He's the father that knocked on the door.
Oh, so Nick
Yeah,
is the guy who knocked on the door.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. Brandon was the
I
actor
didn't
that
like
that
him.
answered the door.
I guess that's really good acting. Whatever I saw right away, I didn't like the guy knocked on the door. That's funny. That's funny. Because he radiated some badness, if that's the right
Well,
term.
yeah, I mean, they all did a good job. So Brandon was
Yeah.
the father of the child that is doing the bullying,
Okay.
and
Okay.
he actually had a great range of emotion too, because he went from being a little aloof to realizing what his daughter was doing, and so he flipped the script pretty quickly there. And again, it was only a four-person cast, right? So we had Nick was the lead actor. Lizzie Plimpton, that's the actress that I worked with previously. She played the mother of the daughter getting bullied, and Caitlin Riley played the mother of the daughter doing the bullying. And Brandon Schrammel was the actor that actually was the father there. And they all just did a fantastic job. I couldn't have asked for four people to step in and do a better job with a day and a half's work of work, right? Because other than Lizzie, we didn't meet until we were on set. We did a virtual Zoom
Uh-huh.
to
Uh-huh.
practice the script and run through it a few times. And then when we got on set, everyone just immediately melted into their role. And as a director, I can't ask for more than that, right? I want people to embody their character the best way they possibly can. And all four of them were just fantastic.
You just said something that resonated with me. The use of Zoom in pre-production or introductions or meeting people. What a great, I mean, you use this as a tool now. Uh, um, I mean, people could audition maybe on Zoom. You get some kind of a feeling. Uh,
Yeah.
so it's a tool, an interesting tool.
Yeah, and it's weird too, right? Because so Lizzie I already knew. I offered her the part right away. But for Nick, Brandon, and Caitlin, they all submitted tapes, right? And I watched the tapes multiple times. So, and then I offered roles, and then so when we finally get on Zoom, I've seen their faces for sometimes a couple of hours, right? And I've watched them perform the part over and over and over before I finally landed on them doing the role. So, for me, it's almost when I first see them, it's like seeing an old friend. For them, they've never seen me before. I mean, maybe they've seen a picture if they've gotten my one IMDb picture that I have on my page. But so it was good to do that because we're able to establish, even if it's just a little bit of a relationship, and I was texting everybody and emailing and everything, but just even being able to get a little bit because, being in South Carolina now, for this particular project, it wasn't like I was up there and we could easily go grab a coffee or anything like that. So it really allowed me to at least get some familiarity and them as well. So when we stepped on set, it wasn't a cold opening, so to speak.
Right,
We had something to work with and
right.
we could, kind of launch right in from there.
So technology really helps the process.
It
Interesting.
does. Yeah, it can.
A few years ago during a pandemic, I am a groupie. So, long story, an actress, this, that, and got a hold of me, and they were putting on. I thought this was fascinating, and you might find it fascinating. They were putting on a play. It was a two women play, and actually was directed. Um, it was directed by the lawyer from my cousin Vinny, the,
Oh,
the stuttering lawyer, Austin Pendleton.
yeah, yeah, I know. Oh, I know who you're talking. I just saw a video of it of him the other day. He's fantastic. I don't know
Fantastic,
his name though. I don't know his
and
name.
and I mean he directs Broadway stuff. So he directed this play. So these two women, I forgot. I saw it. I actually, paid and I went online and I saw it. But it was fascinating. So it was Zoom in the earlier days of Zoom, a few summits during the pandemic. And they're miles and miles, the actresses, even though they're supposed to be in the same room talking, but they're, 1,000 miles away. And you
Sure.
see them handing like a cup of coffee to each other. And the way it seemed like they were right together. But Zoom allowed them to put this production on,
Oh,
and
very cool. Very
yeah, it
cool.
was very, very cool. I forgot the name of the. Anyway, um, just an off-topic question. Just
Sure.
um, I borrowed this as a journalist. I borrowed this from one of my favorite journalists, Barbara Walters. I don't, I plagiarized a little bit, but anyway, it's a cute question, and you can answer it. You don't have to answer it. Here goes. Excluding family or friends, somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with.
Wow. Excluding family and friends.
Yeah,
That is a good question.
it's a good question. And it could be a
Yeah.
few. There's
Oh
no
man.
rules here.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to spend a day with Martin Scorsese. I would just, being an Italian and the background that he has and the filmmaking that he's done and what he's seen and created, I'd love to get just a day inside his brain, just to, hey, just I would just sit. I don't even have to say a word. Maybe ask him a question or two, but just to listen to him. I think that would be amazing. From my musical background, I'd love to spend a day with Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters. I mean,
Sure,
he's
sure.
he's not only a great musician, but he just seems like a good human being. A guy that he'd be fun to just hang out with. Um, Gosh,
Those are good answers. Very
yeah,
good.
I'd put those two right at the top.
Yep, good answers. Funny, last night I wanted to wind down. And I know YouTube. I was playing around and I bopped on Don Rickles of all things. I swear, my hand to God, he was roasting Marty Scorsese.
I've seen that. I've
Yeah,
seen that. I love that. It's so funny. That is
he's so
such a great
funny.
clip.
And of course, he hit on Marty, with his height and stuff, but that's so synchronistic that you said that.
Yeah.
Was really funny. I marvel at Marty Scorsese. I marvel at him because of how amazingly talented he is. But here's my point, Tony. Uh, he's a regular guy. He's a
Yeah.
genius. But you listen to him talk in an interview, this, that. He's just a regular guy, a genius, and he fascinates me, and absolutely fascinates me with his work, and just he's, you could just kind of hang out with him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd add Kevin Smith to that because, you say a regular guy. I've gone to a bunch of his screenings where he does his Q&As and, I follow him online and, I worked with Brian O'Halloran and
right.
Bad Frank. And, to me, that was, you know, Brian is such a genuine, down to earth guy that when I got to meet him, that was the first thing I ever directed, really. So I was in a bit of awe, right? Getting to meet someone that Clerks was a foundational film for me, right? When I saw that, I was like, wow, this is an amazing film. I love this film. And then all of a sudden, Brian Dante is standing in front of me. I was taken aback. It was a little, shocking. But he was just so down to earth. We started having a conversation around, famous film gaffes, problems in films that somehow made it past the editor. And we were just going back and forth on
But I
some. And I'm
love
like,
to, would I have
yeah.
loved to have seen that?
Oh, it was great. And we're just sitting there eating pizza and talking about gaffes in film. And looking back at him, I'm like, man, this is a guy that I, really I, I sort of idolized in a way, right? Because he was in one of my favorite films growing up, and here I am having a conversation with him, and he's just a normal dude.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I've met
you
him,
know,
so I know. I know.
yeah, he's
So
just a good
last
guy,
week
and he's on. I forget what the TV show he's on right now with. I can't remember the name of it with Rob Lowe, but he's kicking ass on the show. Yeah, he's doing really well.
Yeah, no, he's a great guy. Like I said, I met him. Last week or the week before, TCM had in honor of the Academy Awards, they had North by Northwest.
Ah,
And
great film.
I love that movie. I've seen it dozens and dozens of times. I love it, but I'm really bothered by the scene in the scene near the monuments. There's a big restaurant, and Eva Marie Saint is going to shoot Cary Grant,
Yep.
and and you see it, and this annoys me so much. It bothers me, and it said it and. But as she's pulling the gun out, you see a little kid at the table behind them putting his hands to his ears,
Yep.
waiting for the shot to go off, and it hadn't gone off yet. And that bothers me that that got past. And ruins. You
Yep.
know what? Honestly, Tony, it ruins. It's a marvelous movie.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the ending, the real ending, and I mean, it's just, I mean, it's Hitchcock, but that bothers
So,
me.
so my question to you is, did you pick up on that before? Did you read about it and then you went back and saw it, or did
I
you
saw
see
it.
that initially?
I saw it.
You saw it. Okay.
I
Okay.
saw it. I didn't, I didn't read. I saw it. It was pretty obvious. It
Yeah.
wasn't. I mean, it was glaring to have seen that. And of course, The Godfather. Uh, the Godfather when Sonny is beating on Carlo, and he throws a punch that is 2 feet away, and you see him.
Phantom Punch. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was I could kind of live with that, I can live with that, but again, as I'm a movie person, and you want perfection. Uh,
One of my favorites, and it really didn't have any impact on the film, but in Major League, at the end of the film, Tom Berenger's on the film on the field. They just won the game, and he's looking up at Rene Russo in the stands, and as he looks up at Rene Russo, they show her and this gentleman, kind of heavy set guy in a gray t-shirt, runs down past her onto the field, like going like this because they just won. Then they go back to Tom Berenger and he smiles at her, and they go back to Rene Russo, and that same guy runs past her again from up top down, like right past her. And I remember seeing that. I'm like, hey, wait a second. That guy was just in it 2 seconds ago. So again, no impact on the film, but one
no,
of those things where, wow, they could have caught that because
yeah,
I just picked up on that, and that was pretty simple. But
yeah,
when you're, and this is in the editing process, you get so close to the film and you're looking for certain things, sometimes the glaringly obvious disappears
right,
because you're so focused on I need this one thing here. Sometimes you need an outside set of eyes to actually go look at it, and sometimes people don't get that. So for whatever reason, so that's where I think some of those come in. There was another one in Stripes. If you remember the beginning of Stripes, when Eugene Levy bets Bill Murray like $3 or $4 that he can't do 5 push-ups. So he does the push-ups, and Bill Murray leans over, and Eugene Levy throws the money on him. Not Eugene Levy. I can't remember the other guy's name. Harold Ramis. Harold
okay,
Ramis throws the money on him, and he's got $5 on his chest. Then they go back to Harold Ramis. They go back to Bill Murray, and all of a sudden he has more money on his chest. So again, small things like that they probably weren't even focused on at all, but
yeah,
if they just did like a cursory or had some outside set of eyes look at it, probably would have been a whole different story. And again,
yeah.
no impact on the story at
No,
all,
of course not.
but
But listen, for a discerning eye and somebody who wants perfection, me as a viewer,
yeah,
if you listen, even I've seen Casablanca 200 times. I told you it changed my life.
yeah.
But there's one scene there that bothers me because it's pretty glaring. It's the scene in the train station, and it's pouring rain, and there, uh, Dooley Wilson and Humphrey Bogart are going to get on a train and get out of there. And Bogart reads a note, and he's reading a note from Ingrid Bergman, and he's dripping wet because it's pouring. And then he throws the note away, and they go on a train, and he's completely dry. Uh,
Yeah.
Bothers me. You
I get
know,
it. I get
it
it.
bothers me.
Yeah.
But because the love of the movie is so strong, you overlook it and you forget about it. But
Yeah.
interesting. By the way, I get the feeling we could go on here for hours. But let's move on.
Really. Yes.
So what is the plan? Well, you just kind of said it. To featureize this, I get maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's the plan. I'm actually writing or finalizing the feature script at this point. The script is it's a little darker than probably the short, because the short is really sort of almost like a chapter in what is the full story,
Mhm.
and um, and it's an early on chapter, so he gets pushed even further, the father anyway in this, and he becomes a little bit more violent. If you saw the movie Nobody, came out I guess a couple years ago with his name escapes me, Bob Odenkirk, from Better Call Saul. He basically plays a guy who you think is just, a normal, just a normal guy, no one you'd ever think anything about, but he has a very vicious background and he gets pushed too far and he winds up retaliating. And that's sort of the direction that this is going to go to take it a little, make it a little bit cinematic, but still keep you know, the, the story together and still really show sort of the impulse behind it. I think that's what we're looking to do with it.
I can't remember if we were before we went on air or you mentioned this, but some other things you've done of note. I know I know that the film that you did with Brian O'Halloran, uh,
Yeah,
which was a marvelous cast, and so is your other film. Uh, Talk a little bit about those two projects. I mean, that's
sure.
good stuff.
Well, the first project I did was a film called Wingman Inc. With a partner of mine, Choice Skinner, really good friend, and it was a rom-com. And then after that, we did Bad Frank. That's the film you were mentioning. We had Kevin Interdonato was the lead, but we had uh, Brian O'Halloran was in it, certainly, Tom Sizemore, Ray Boom Boom Mancini. And then my next feature that I wrote and directed was The Price for Silence. Lynn Mancinelli, who was also in Bad Frank, was the star of that. But we
Mhm.
had Richard Thomas was in that. We had a whole great cast in that film, so it was amazing. Kristen, who played the mom in that, was just she's become a dear friend. So we had a really great cast in that, and currently I'm actually, in addition to turning this into a feature, I have a project called Cutter, which is sort of another darker thriller sort of film. It's sort of a Black Widow serial killer thriller. We actually have most of the cast. We're close to. I've got my DP. I've got pretty much everything. But as you know, as a filmmaker, the one thing everyone's always looking for is budget. So that's if anyone out there has has any interest, hit me up. But we have everything in place. It's just a matter of getting it going. And actually, Bruno and I, who's the DP on this, we also wrote another project that is called Cousin Finbar's Irish Wake. So it's an Irish rom-com that we hope that we could shoot in Ireland. I know Ireland has tremendous film tax credits at this point, and I mean the most lush surroundings you could ever possibly imagine for filmmaking. So, that's why we wrote it. And it's sort of like my wife is Irish, so it's almost like my love letter to Ireland for her. So we hope that we get that one off the ground too.
Great. That'd be great. To go to Ireland. My son has a guy he works with, and they just went to Ireland for a couple of days to be there for St. Patrick's Day.
Oh,
Nothing. The feedback I got from my son, we were talking last night. He said, and the feedback from the guy I went is nothing quite like it on Earth
yeah,
to be
yep.
for that. Just magic.
That's what I hear. That's my daughter
Magic.
was over there, so
Yeah, magic,
that's what
magic,
she said.
magic.
Yeah.
Um, you already mentioned Marty Scorsese. Two-part question. I like asking this too because other filmmakers besides that you admire, and some films that you could watch again and again and again.
Sure. Well, I already mentioned Scorsese, Kevin Smith, both of them I think are brilliant. I love Edgar Wright. Baby Driver to me was a brilliant film, and all the films that he's done with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and those guys are great. I'm also a huge Tarantino fan. I think he hasn't made a bad movie. I'm disappointed to hear that he's planning to only do one more. So I think that's a shame and a waste. I mean, if you look at Scorsese, he's still going strong and doing some of his best work now. So,
Yeah,
I mean, unless he's completely, done with the business, just keep telling stories. I think
sure.
he has such a unique vision and a unique voice that I'd hate to see him stop.
Yeah.
But those are probably, some of my favorite filmmakers. Goodfellas is a movie I could watch over and over and
Ah,
over. Shawshank Redemption is
yeah.
right there with them. But my guilty pleasure is probably uh, Teen Wolf. When I was in college, I watched Teen Wolf every day for 3 weeks just because I had a VCR and I had a tape. And so I love that movie. It's a cheesy, crazy film, but that and like films like Better Off Dead, the whole John Cusack
Uh-huh.
uh, column. He had so many of those sort of 80s funny rom-com films that actually another project that I did with Bruno was this movie it's called Chairlift. It's a skiing stoner comedy, right? So we've written a whole universe and the whole inspiration for it was Hot Dog and Better Off Dead. So I just wanted to write something crazy that has just this whole, history behind it with Bob Marley's tied into it and like all this crazy stuff with, legalization of marijuana and, the SEC. It's just a whole crazy story. So, so yeah, my inspirations are vast and wide.
Yeah. 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 Wow. Boy, we could talk for hours. My, to pick your brain because what you do, I love. I love everything. And there was a short period of time in my life when I envisioned myself at 6'5", becoming the next John Wayne. Um,
I just watched The Quiet Man again, so
oh,
do a remake.
yeah, just and the Searchers. I mean,
I watch that once a year.
oh, yeah, you can't watch it too much, but it's so good.
It's brilliant.
It's
Yeah.
so good. He's such a racist. Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
such a racist, and little Natalie Wood, and uh, that scene, that scene, Tony, at the end when he turns around and he starts walking that John Wayne walk,
Yeah.
everything, the sadness, he brought people together, and it's just something so powerful, lonely, lonely.
Yeah.
He's a
Yep.
lonely man. About it was so powerful.
Yep. John Ford was just, I mean, he has so many amazing films. I think that might be my favorite of his, though.
Yeah,
It's
I
just amazing.
agree. Just fabulous. And I watch obsessively Rio Bravo with Dean Martin and Frank
Yeah.
and
Yep.
Ricky Nelson and Walter Brennan. I watch
Yep.
that and inordinately often. I just want to hear Dean sing. I love Dean Martin. Love
He's a
Dean
classic.
Martin. My
Yeah.
uncle was a movie writer. So maybe genetically that's why I'm a writer. But Frank Sinatra came to him a bunch of years ago, a long time ago, and said, my uncle's it was on my uncle Dave, and he said, I need a movie for the Rat Pack. You gotta come up with something. See if you can do it. So my uncle wrote Robin and the Seven Hoods,
Oh,
which
no kidding.
yeah, and the preceded Ocean's 11 and all that stuff, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, so he wrote that for Frank, and actually it did really well in the box that
Yeah.
year. And my uncle tells a story that he came home from work, and he lived in Beverly Hills, of course, and he came home from work, and he stopped short. There was this big white Cadillac in the driveway with a big red bow, and there was a little note there, "You did good, thanks, Frank."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's an oh wow. Um, Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, nice, fun stories.
Yeah.
As we kind of wind down, what are you looking forward to most coming up and going? You're going to be at the Garden State Film Festival?
Yeah, yeah. I can't wait to go. Price for Silence was actually in the festival several years ago, and I don't think I really took advantage of the festival as and everything they do there as best as I could. So, I've learned a lot since then, and I'm really looking forward to meeting the other filmmakers. And, this is going to be the world premiere of the film. I'm looking forward to seeing other people see it, right? As a filmmaker, that's one of the things you want to do is you want to elicit emotion from people. You want to, see how they react. So and for some of the actors, this will be the first time they see it.
Okay.
So I'm really excited to see how people react to the film and, hopefully it's positive. Hopefully we get, a good reaction, but to me, that's the two things I'm looking forward to the most. Just
Okay.
talking and, networking with some other filmmakers and just hearing their stories and then just seeing how it does on the big screen. Because, most of what I've seen is on this little monitor that I'm on right now, right? You don't see it
I know.
on a full live
I
screen. It's a
know.
totally different experience. So I'm really excited to see that.
Great. Great. One last not really off topic, but I like this question and it came to me 2 weeks ago when I watched the Academy Awards and I don't watch it often. I watch it, but it completely blew me away to see that an indie film basically won everything. In Nora. So you got Best Director, Best Actress, Best Film, and a budget of 6 million, which is a lot of money, but it ain't in the world of Hollywood. So I was excited for people like yourself because this, to me, represents a brave new world. That this an indie can achieve this kind of success. So your thoughts and comments about that?
I have a lot of thoughts about that actually because I haven't seen Anora. It's actually one of the ones on my list that I do want to see. Um, I see when I think of indie film, I don't like a $6 million budget to me is like unheard of.
Yeah,
Like to me, that's not really indie.
yeah,
Indie to me is, 500,000, 250,000, a million, or less. So, I respect that maybe they didn't have the big budget backing, but, I know that they also then spent 3 times their budget on marketing in order to push for the Oscars, right? So, that doesn't scream indie to me,
yeah.
right? So I do get, they were very scrappy from what I understand, and I think the director, he's a Jersey guy too, so I totally respect everything he did. Um, and the film could be amazing. Is that really indie? I don't know. I think there's a
Good
difference
point.
there. So, I hope it does open up a lot of doors and avenues for, filmmakers like myself, because as I mentioned earlier, the biggest challenge is finding budget, right? So, there are tons of great scripts out there that never get made, and I couldn't tell you why. I think I have some great scripts. I know other people that have had great scripts, and then I've seen scripts that I know were, could have been better and that get funded and get made. So it's a weird dynamic there. So I have mixed emotions on it. I really appreciate that a film that wasn't a huge studio made it and did that well. So I appreciate that part of it. So yeah, I'm kind of mixed.
Yeah, by the way, I love your response, and there were aspects of that I didn't even think of. Uh, um, um, you hear 6 million, but you did bring up that I don't know 15, 16 million they spent on marketing. So you're right. Is it a real indie? Good point. Good point. It's an interesting question. It can't be bad. Just even people, subliminally hearing
Oh
indie.
no, not at all. I totally agree. Totally agree.
So it's all good stuff. So we're kind of done with this, and but this has been great meeting you.
Absolutely. I really
Truly
appreciate
great.
it. This is fantastic conversation.
Yeah, this was great stuff. Uh, hey, come back anytime. Anything you're working on, you want to, wrap and talk, and I'm all yours. loyal. We're friends, Tony, and I'm loyal. It's a great thing, loyalty. So
That's
come
one of
back.
my favorite words.
Yeah, it's great. Me too. It's what life is all about, loyalty. And I'm glad you said that because that's who I am. So
Yep.
come back. I wish you only good things next weekend. I'm gonna stop recording now. We'll do. I love saying it. We're gonna do 2 minute wrap. It's a little theatrical term. But thank you so much, Tony.
Thanks, Cal. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.